Okay, so we are talking about a theme called tag. The transcendental argument for the existence of God, or tag, it is commonly referred to. Now, I first became aware of this argument. There's a version of it that's floating around on YouTube, made popular by a guy named Matt Slick. He's a Christian apologist. Now, his version of the argument has been successfully debunked, has been successfully refuted by at least two atheists that I know of. His version does not work. So why am I talking about it? Because the first two premises of argument are logically sound, and the conclusion of his argument is almost logically sound. The problem comes in the middle. Instead of allowing his premises to precede one logical conclusion from the next, so that we arrive at an organic, logical conclusion wherein we discover through logic that one of the worldviews, atheist or theist, is logically not possible. Yes, that is what the argument purports to do. Obviously, he's on the side of God, and so am I. That we can, by using the tools of logic, prove that God is real. Now, what's the problem with his argument? The problem with his argument is he does not allow the conclusions to organically arise, step by step, premise by premise, so that we get to his conclusion. He kind of fudges. He does what the one atheist who is debunking it refers to as a sleight of hand. But let's start at the beginning. The first premise of the argument. First premise of the argument, there are three laws of logic. The law of contradiction, the law of excluded middle, and the law of identity. Now, nobody argues with the first premise. First premise is for all intents and purposes, 100% true. You get 50 atheists in a room, 50 Christians in a room, and we're all reasonably educated. Nobody argues with premise number one. It's established fact as far as this argument is concerned. Premise number two, I'm not 100% sure about. Premise number two is that these laws are transcendental in nature. Now, by transcendental, the only thing I mean by that word, it's a loaded word, I don't mean it in a loaded way. I just mean that they exist outside of space and outside of time. The laws of logic are true. If you go back 100 years in time, they are true. And if you go forward 100 years in time, they are true. They exist outside of space and time. They are true, period. Now, I'm not 100% sure that every atheist would agree with premise number two. There may be some who disagree. So if you are one of those, I think that number two is also established fact, but maybe there are some people who disagree. Now, keep in mind, I am not trying to win a semantic argument. I do not care about semantics whatsoever. So if you're arguing with the phrasing of anything, don't worry about it. I'm only interested in the underlying concepts. Are they logically sound? Can I actually prove organically the existence of God using only the tools of logic? That is what I'm trying to do. I am not trying to play, let me stump the atheists, okay? And because I stumped you or outmaneuvered you intellectually, therefore God is real. That's not what I'm trying to do. I believe that the actual underlying logic of the argument can be tweaked and reconstructed so that it literally proves the existence of God. Matt Slick, let me reiterate, Matt Slick did not successfully do that. He has been debunked by at least two atheists that I know of. Their refutation is correct. 100% correct. His version of the argument fails, period. What I'm trying to do is rework his argument so that it works. It is my firmly held conviction that if I were to find a reasonable atheist, an intelligent atheist, that we could agree on premise by premise, brick by brick, step by step, and those steps we could build to a logical conclusion wherein I would prove the existence of God. Now, the atheist is going to assume the opposite, I'm assuming. He's going to say, if we follow it down to its logical conclusion, we're going to find that God doesn't exist. Because this is the hinge point of the argument, and this is where Matt was also correct. The two are mutually exclusive. We either have a universe in which God exists, or we have a universe in which there is no God. The two are mutually exclusive. A lot of times, atheists and Christians want to get in semantic arguments. They're stupid. Stop doing them. It isn't a game of let me stump the atheist, therefore God exists. That's not the name of the game. I am either 100% right, God is real, or the atheist is 100% right, there is no God. I mean, okay, well, the atheist has a little more leg room, so the atheist doesn't have to be 100% right. I heard that. I got you. Okay. Obviously, I'm engaging this because I believe I'm 100% right, case closed. Now, I've said this before and I will say this again. God is as real to me as my right arm. I have knowledge of my right arm. My right arm exists. That is how real my knowledge of God is. Okay, you say nonsense. Well, this is why I think that the tag argument has real value. Because I am assuming that the tools of logic that me and the atheist both understand, that we could, if we were debating, reasoning together, we could actually literally prove that my right arm exists, because it in fact does. Now, is there a possibility that I'm wrong about my right arm? I mean, I guess, a 0.00005% chance, or whatever, some sort of minuscule fraction of a chance that I'm completely wrong because of some stupid theory you thought of wherein this isn't even a real world or whatever. But for the sake of an argument, for the sake of all intents and purposes and reasonable conclusions, yes, my right arm exists. So I believe that if we start on this process of building a logical framework, we can actually logically prove that my right arm exists, and by extension also logically prove that God exists. Why do I think this? Because it already occurred to me in another video of mine. Now this occurred to me just out of the blue, organically, that if there is a universe without a God, that automatically negates, that automatically makes rationally completely impossible some things that we know are established fact, or you may deeply believe it. Like what? For example, okay, I can only think of one so far, but I believe I will be able to find about 50. But for right now, there's only one I can think of. I just thought of off the top of my head. That's why I believe I can think of a lot. If there is no God, there can be no such thing as a personal destiny. Forever and always. Never. They are not logically compatible one with another. So if you're an atheist and you believe in a personal destiny, you believe that you have some sort of mission in life that isn't invented by you, you're going to have to lay either that aside or your atheism aside, because they are mutually exclusive. They cannot be. Now, very few atheists would argue with this. Most atheists understand this, and they say that this is, they try to argue that this is a positive about atheism. There are no gods, there are no masters, there are no predestined conclusions. Your life is your own and you can build it how you want, and you can, put your own values into it. Now, I don't agree with that at all. But that's not the point of the argument. The point of the argument is the two are mutually exclusive. They are logically incompatible one with another. If there is no intelligent design of the universe, there can be no such thing as a personal destiny. Ever. It doesn't exist. Now, this is why I'm saying that I've said in times past, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and I don't want to I don't want to make bigger claims than I can make. But I believe there are a lot of these, and that they're no-brainers, because I didn't struggle too hard to find that one, and not too many people would argue with it. It's axiomatic, it's self-evident. It's self-evident. Doesn't really need to be proven. Now, one of the other things that I've said is axiomatic, and I'll let you decide this for yourself, is when we talk about a personal destiny, you take somebody like Shakespeare. In a world where there is no God, okay, that means the universe is governed by random chance. That means Shakespeare, the playwright Shakespeare, was not predestined to be a playwright. Now, to me, that's a no-brainer. You take someone like Shakespeare, someone like Beethoven, to me it's 100% as plain as day that they were predestined to be what they were. Beethoven was predestined to be a composer. That those gifts that he has are not random, obviously, to me. That's as plain as day. Now, if you, the atheist, say, that's not as plain as day, I disagree with that, prove it, I can't, yet. So we're going to have to lay that aside. I can't, yet. To me, it's self-evident. But if you disagree with that, obviously, I can't prove it yet. Or, well, not obviously, but I can't prove it yet. So this is why I've latched on to tag. Because tag can actually prove my side of the argument. Because God and no God are mutually exclusive realities. Now again, let me reiterate, before I do not have the proof of tag yet. I do not have the reworking of his argument yet. But I am building on it. I am not trying to win a semantic argument. I am not interested. I am also not trying to disprove atheism and then by negation, therefore God. It's not what I'm trying to do. I'm making a positive assertion. God exists. God is real to me as my right arm. Therefore, I am concluding that I can actually literally prove that. Literally. Using the tools of logic. Because if you and I were to sit down and have a conversation about my right arm and we use the tools of logic, I'm assuming that we could actually prove somehow that my right arm exists, because in fact it does. So I'm working from God, I'm working on my God reality from the same assumption. That I am not imagining God, that God is real. Therefore I can prove him. So, we're going to start with tag. If you do not believe any of the other things that I've said prove God, they're not proofs yet. That's fine. So, that's where we are right now, for the time being.